Andy Lang has been with WagerTalk for 2 years and has crushed bookmakers in golf and auto racing, picking up 65% in profit in golf and 36% in auto racing, increasing his clients' bankrolls by an incredible 101%. There are over 40 golf tournaments and 50 auto racing events to wager on in 2022, and Andy Lang is offering a special on both sports for a limited time, saving his clients over $1,100 versus the retail price. Purchasing these golf, NASCAR, and Formula One selections on an individual sport and weekly basis would cost you over $1,500 from January 6, 2022 to August 28, 2022. But for a limited time, you can lock in all of these releases, including rare 5% best bets for only $3.99, coming out to just $1.70 per day. Just go to Andy Lang's homepage at WagerTalk to lock in this amazing golf and auto racing combo offer.
Happy Friday, everybody. It is Friday, and Friday starts the weekend. This is Prop It Up. We are here to get your weekend started and get it off to a profitable start through the prop betting market. Andrew McInnis is off this week. He is in Vegas, and at the time of recording this, there is 0% chance he's awake. I'm just going to guarantee that he's not awake at this point. But my good friend and fellow prop master Matt Josephs from sportsmemo.com is here with us. We're going to start off with some fun stats. One of them's not too fun, but we're going to go over it anyway. So let's start with fun stat number one. The Bills have outscored opponents this year by 134 points. The Falcons have been outscored by 108 points. And the Bills only have one more win than the Falcons. Yes, the Falcons are one game away from the Bills, despite being outscored by well over 200 points in the point differential. Stat number two, we're going to the NBA. The Cleveland Cavaliers are an incredible 22-5 ATS this season. If you would have just bet the Cleveland Cavaliers every game, you would be doing very, very well. You'd be known as one of the best NBA handicappers in the world. And finally, the Browns. They have as many quarterbacks with COVID this week as they do 300-yard passing games this season. So those are your fun stats for this week. Matt, bringing you in. We're going to go over a couple of NFL games, and then we're going to get to how all of this stuff is going to affect NFL. We're also going to get into college football. How are things for you? Have you had anything affected with all this mess? You navigating through your bets with this? How's it going?
I got a fun stat for you. If you kick 3 field goals, you win a game last night, and you don't go to overtime. Just give me like 20 seconds here. I know Andrew's not here, so I don't want to be long-winded. But look, I complain. Everybody knows they follow me on Twitter. I complain. But last night, I think I did about as good a job handicapping that game with regards to the props as possible, and it literally could not have gone any more wrong in terms of, I like these kicker props we've talked about on the show. Butker hit his. Hopkins should have hit his, but his coach is an idiot. And then also, if they kick that first field goal, Donald Parham is not in the hospital. I had a prop on him, and they threw a lot to the tight ends last night. So that should have hit. Darrell Williams, of course, we both got, screwed on him because he did not have the game we thought. But, I just need a couple more rushing yards from him, which would have been nice. So what was a 2-3 night should have been more of like a 4-1 night. And it was just very frustrating because as much as I do, when you handicap a game and it goes the way you think it's going to go and it still doesn't work out prop-wise, that's about as frustrating as it can get.
I was frustrated. You had a ton of yards, you had a ton of points, and yet I had 2 overs that didn't even get close to going over. You're looking at the final score and you're like, how did all these overs go under? So I get it. It was very frustrating. I had the Butker prop over. I was debating back and forth between Hopkins and Butker, and I actually I stayed away from Hopkins for just that very scenario. I didn't think it would be that bad, but I get it. So all right, well, let's get into the games that are going this week. We each pick a game, and we're going to talk about it. Matt, you're going to go with the Eagles and the football team. They are on the list of teams we're going to talk about in the next segment. But for now, what do you expect from this Eagles and football team game prop-wise?
Well, it's ironic that we're doing this now, and it's, with the latest news that Taylor Heineke is now going on the COVID list, and unless Kyle Allen comes out of it, you're looking at a Shermer, Tamu, or Garrett Gilbert starting quarterback situation for the Washington football team. So it's kind of hard to handicap their side of it. I'll be interested to see what the numbers are. There will be value on somebody. The funny thing is when you look to exploit the Eagles, you look to exploit them against the tight ends, and you've got John Bates and Ricky Seals-Jones, who are both, trying to take over for Logan Thomas. And I think there will be value on somebody. One of those two numbers is going to be a little too low. I believe Bates did better than Ricky Seals-Jones last week, but we'll see what happens. There could be value on both of them, depending upon how low the numbers are. It's ironic also that the Taylor Heineke news came out. I had sent out to my clients because I thought the Washington plus 10.5 line was ridiculous at the time, because I figured Taylor Heineke was going to play and the offense was going to be okay. And now that line's going to continue to go up. So we'll see what happens there. So I apologize to the clients who may have gotten the 10.5, and now we're going to see maybe, 13.5, 14.5, who knows. On the Eagles side, look, we still don't know who it's going to be with regards to Hurts or Minshew. I think if Hurts plays, I think it's better for the Eagles' run game, because I think Miles Sanders becomes more viable, although we don't know what Miles Sanders' status is going to be. Will it be Kenny Gainwell who gets more? Will it be Boston Scott? Jordan Howard is still lurking out there. So there's a lot of muddled backfield things. I think if Howard is active, I think there's value on him and his potential props as the guy who's going to be the guy behind Miles Sanders. And once again, we've talked about it. I love betting these supplemental guys because I think there's some value there. That's why I took Parham last night over the 10.5 yards. I think he would have hit it if he did get hurt, and hopefully everything is okay with him as he continues to get tested and everything. But look, I picked the one game it feels like that has everything being muddled, but I would say this. I think, to summarize, Washington's tight ends are going to have some value if the numbers are really low. The Eagles are exploitable at tight end, and I think Jordan Howard's going to have some value both to score a touchdown and to get some rushing yards if he's active. We'll get more clarity later on today once the injury reports come out. But muddled situation, but I think there's still some value there.
Yeah, I'm with you. The one I want the most clarity on is just the Eagles running backs, because they're, with all the players missing for the football team, I think there's just going to be a lot of value there. I would really hope to get Jalen Hurts in this one. I think a Jalen Hurts over rushing prop would be good. Are you hoping for one quarterback or the other for this one?
Well, I mean, the fan in me doesn't mind who the quarterback is because I think they're going to win either way. The prop guy, I think you'll get better value on the running back props if Hurts plays. But here's the one thing, if Hurts plays and he's still not 100% and the ankle's bothering him, I don't know how much they're going to want to run him. And if they have these four running backs, look, if you have Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell, Jordan Howard, and Miles Sanders, I think they're going to do their best to not run Jalen Hurts and maybe almost use him as a decoy. So if that number's a little too high, I actually might look at the under there on Jalen Hurts' rushing. I think there could be some unders on some of the receiving because I just don't think there's going to be much of a reason to throw the ball, especially if Washington's down a bunch of guys on the defensive line.
Good stuff. Matt Joseph, sportsmemo.com, going over the Eagles and football team. I went over the list. It would have been too easy to pick the Colts and the Patriots. I actually think that's a tough game to handicap from a props perspective. So I went with the other marquee game this week, the Texans and the Jaguars. And the production gods were looking down on me as we get the Urban Meyer news. And I absolutely, I liked the Jaguars as soon as the Urban Meyer news came out. Now I'm just liking them more and more and more. Before the news happened, I was actually really excited to bet on the Texans. I couldn't believe the Jaguars were favored, and now they're gone. So prop wise, this is just set up for a huge James Robinson game. I really hope he doesn't disappoint, but he's going to get all of the carries, and the Texans are not very good on defense. We'll just say that. And I would actually look for Trevor Lawrence to play a little bit more free, and I would look for him to open it up a little bit more. His passing yards have been atrocious. I mean, he's got 221 yards, 145, 228, 158, 162, 118, just some of these absolutely horrible numbers. And when you got that cloud hanging over your team and your franchise, you're just going to get performances like this. He's coming off a game with 4 interceptions to Tennessee. I think they're going to open it up. I think they're going to be a lot more free, and they just get a great opponent in the Texans. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a little bit of a shootout. I did a write-up earlier this week about how the Jaguars haven't scored over 21 points this entire season. And their team total this week was 21.5. And I thought, well, geez, if they haven't done it yet this year, why would they do it this week? I think they can get over now. I think their offense is going to be much more fun to watch, and it's not going to be held down. As far as the Texans go, Davis Mills and Brandon Cooks, I would still look to their overs. Brandon Cooks had a huge game last week, obviously in a loss. Davis Mills got over 300 yards. The running backs for Houston is going to be a bit of a mess, but I actually think this is a game that is worthy of looking at some of these props. I think several of them are going to make my cards once we get final numbers on there, but just because this game is really, really low on the totem pole of games to keep an eye on doesn't mean there's not value in some of the props. And I'm going to be looking at Jaguars overs. That is not something I've done in a long, long time, bet on Jaguars overs, but I think it sets up well. So Matt, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on this and the Urban Meyer situation.
Well, I'll say this. You know who I think is going to benefit is Marvin Jones, who played with Darrell Bevell the most in Detroit and now in Jacksonville and knows this system. And I think Marvin Jones is a guy that you're going to find some value on potentially. Now, I always struggle with the receptions versus yards thing. He could find the end zone here. You're right. Trevor Lawrence could be a lot freer, but I think I'm going to look besides James Robinson because I think you're right. James Robinson's going to run for like 200 yards probably. But I think Marvin Jones Jr. is the other guy who's going to benefit being in Darrell Bevell's system in Detroit and being familiar with the guy. I think he's going to have a big game as well.
It would also be a gigantic FU to Urban Meyer that Marvin Jones was the one that got in the yelling and screaming match with Urban Meyer. And then if he came out and had it'd be a little bit of poetic justice. So, all right, there you go for the Texans and the Jaguars. Matt, what do you got for us this weekend? I know you got college bowls that are coming up, college basketball. What do we got on tap moving forward?
Yeah, college bowls. We have one going underway right now, so there's nothing like a noon game in the Bahamas. So that officially has kicked us off in the bowl season. And look, as I said, we're going to talk about it more in just a moment. A lot of my bowl plays are going to come out the day of or the night before because of all the things that could come up. There's still opt-outs. Yesterday alone, we saw Kenny Pickett opt out. We saw Kenneth Walker. And I'm just not in the mood to try and hedge things and figure out numbers and say, well, I bet this much on this, and then now I got to bet this much on this. So a lot of the props that are and the things that are going to come out for me for the bowl games are going to come out the day of because I just think that, look, as I've talked about, I'm willing to give up bad numbers to skip things and make sure to have the most information. And also we play team totals, we play quarter bets, we play half bets. So there's other ways to get around the bad numbers in the bowl games. And as you said, college basketball slowed down a little bit because of, holidays and testing and things like that. So there's less games. And then, of course, the NFL Sundays will have plenty of other stuff. And you want to check it all out at sportsmemo.com.
I've got a 5% NFL play that is up right now, has not been affected at all by any of the COVID issues. So I encourage everyone to get that play. It has moved half a point. It's still good, but just don't wait until right before kickoff to get these big plays. These should be locked in early in the week. That's why we put them up on Tuesday. So biggest promo for me right now, golf season's right around the corner. Starts January 6th, and we put together a huge promo. The two sports that got me here on WagerTalk were golf and NASCAR, and we're running a special. You want to get the rest of the 2022 golf season, which goes from January through August. That's $399. And you're also going to get all of my NASCAR plays and Formula One plays in that time period too. So you're getting just free auto racing. And these are my two best sports right now, winning percentage wise. I've not had a losing season in any of those sports since I've been here at WagerTalk.com. So for $400, you can get golf, NASCAR, and Formula One. If you're $100 better, like literally one 4% win gets you that entire season paid off. It's the best deal that we've done for any of my long-term sports. So really encourage you to do that. There's no promo code. Just go to the profile page and pick that up. Make sure you do it before January because the golf season starts. And once the golf season starts in January, offer comes down. So, all right, Matt, let's get into, let's start with the college system and these bowl games and college basketball and how you see this playing out. And then we'll get into some NFL. So let's start with college bowl games and transfers, COVID protocols, and what people need to be looking out for.
I mean, look, this is another reason why I can't make bets until the day of. I mean, look, in college football lately, I mean, obviously lately, we have not seen anything COVID-wise in college football, which is good. And, look, I don't know if the testing has been a little more lax when it comes to this sort of thing, but in college football, we've seen that nothing yet. But that's another reason why you still have to wait as we get closer to make sure. There's a bet I absolutely love next week, but I just can't lock it in right now because all sorts of things can change. And these college programs, this is not like the NFL where, look, you're replacing starters with guys who aren't as good but are still pro-worthy. Like in college football, the wrong guy getting COVID and the backup stepping in is worth 1 or 2 points more. College basketball, for those who didn't watch the show last year, you agree and Andrew agrees, like, one of the best things to bet was fading teams coming off their COVID pauses. And if you remember last year, when teams went on COVID pauses, they didn't play any basketball. They barely left their rooms. They were unable to do anything. And we've seen now there's about 10 or 11, 12 programs right now on COVID pause. My beloved alma mater, Syracuse, had to cancel or postpone their next 2 games. And so once again, we're going to start looking at fading these teams when they come off their COVID pauses, whether it's the first half, especially if it's a road game, or if it's a full game, if it's a team that likes to run up and down. They're not going to have that stamina in the second half. So now that we've got teams on these COVID pauses, we are certainly looking towards fading them in that first game back, whether it's first half or full game, because they're going to struggle if the protocols are the same as they were last year.
Is there anything we can learn from college basketball, or is it just kind of are we in a hold pattern with everything right now? Is there any value to be made off of college basketball at this point?
Well, that's what we were just, that's what I was just saying in terms of we haven't seen anybody play their first game off of a COVID pause yet because we've been good. We had been good for the most part with regard to that. Now we're seeing, I think, as I said, there was about 12 teams who are on COVID pause. When they play their first game back, much like last year, we're going to look to fade them. So we'll see what happens. Now, things could be a little bit different on campus. Last year, they were extreme. They had some of the kids that had COVID like in hotels away from everybody else. Like nobody left their rooms. Nobody did anything. I'm assuming that's still the same this year when it comes to the COVID protocols on campuses. But yeah, definitely looking to fade these teams off their first game as they get their legs under them. And we're seeing teams slowly. Look, the Vegas Classic, the CBS Sports Classic had 2 games. It's down to 1 game now as there's been a bunch of teams that had COVID. And so we'll see what happens. But yeah, we're definitely looking forward to fading some of these teams that first game back.
All right, let's go over NFL. Got up this morning and started making notes about what teams are having issues. And I guess one of my big takeaways is just be careful about overreacting. This isn't every team. There are some big names, yes, but there are several games that this just has no effect on, and there are teams that this just doesn't have any effect on. So I would be careful about pressing the panic button early. So I will start off by saying I think the NFL is going to do whatever it takes to get some of these guys playing this weekend. Some of these guys that are on the COVID list, it was early in the week, so they still have multiple chances to test positive, especially the Monday night game, which we'll get into right now. So Bears and the Vikings. It's Friday when we record this. They don't play till Monday night. I think a lot of these guys are going to come off. Alexander Madison is listed as out. Allen Robinson, as well as a few defenders for Chicago is out. I think these guys probably end up playing. So if Alexander Madison's out, obviously we got to go with a huge game for Dalvin Cook. One game that is very much affected, and it's affected because this is a Saturday game, the Cleveland Browns and the Raiders. Huge problems with the quarterbacks. It may be Nick Mullins for Cleveland. Jarvis Landry is out. And if you're looking at props for this game, the Browns may be really struggling to move the ball. I would look at Josh Jacobs over, and it's going to be a huge Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt game if both of the Case Keenum and Baker Mayfield are out and we're down to Nick Mullins. It's a lot of handing the ball off. Peoples-Jones might be an interesting look. I don't know what his number is going to be, but he may be the lone wide receiver left there. So take a look at that one. We mentioned the Texans and the Jaguars. If this list stays the same, there's going to be a lot of depth on the Houston Texans defense that is going to be out, and that helps the Jacksonville Jaguars overs even more than we mentioned earlier. Nobody on the offense for Houston is on the list. Potentially could be a shootout. Davis Mills and Brandon Cooks are definitely worth a look on their overs. I would look at the Houston Texans running backs on some unders. The Rams and Seahawks. The Rams are the biggest one. They're in trouble. At this point, they probably are not going to have a full team on the sidelines. Tons of players missing on defense. Matt, I will say I would look for overs. This game could be a shootout if the Rams continue to miss this. And Stafford to Cooper Kupp is going to be a big deal because the Seahawks are one of the worst teams. Rams, Seahawks with the Rams with this many defensive players. Is this maybe the game that's probably the most affected this week in the NFL? Have you looked at this one?
Well, see, so Seattle's bad against running backs. So to me, I would love some clarity on the Michelle Henderson situation. And once again, whoever they are, if they both play, I might look for the secondary guy because I feel like it's going to be a shared situation with those two guys. And look, I to go off of what you said also with regards to not just the spread and the player props, like I think people are overreacting. Like I really wanted to play Cleveland with Case Keenum under center. I still may look at Cleveland with Nick Mullins under center if this thing keeps, because people forget, like, the Raiders aren't a good football team, and they still have to travel. And by the way, just looked it up, rain and wind in the forecast, a.k.a. a typical Cleveland home game. And the wind is going to be 17 to 20 miles per hour. Now, I don't know necessarily how it lines up with regards to the stadium and things like that, but 17 to 20 miles per hour for the winds, and you've got two bad teams. And look, Nick Mullins, if there's wind problems, Nick Mullins just has to manage the game. And so to me, I'm going to be watching these spreads. And obviously, as I just talked about, I jumped in on Washington plus 10.5. Now, it was too early because I'm sure that thing's going to go up if Taylor Heineke can't play. But I think that you have to be careful with the overreactions, as you said, because there's going to be some value with somebody, and it could be the underdog in a lot of times.
The Dolphins and the Jets, we have a lot of issues with the skill position players on the Dolphins. They have no running backs right now. Jalen Waddle looks to be out. If Waddle is out, look at Gesicki. He could have a monster game. And it might be Duke Johnson as the starting running back. But this is one of those games where, and I know the NFL already met with the owners yesterday to lighten up on the protocols for when players can return. I just think a lot of these guys that are on the list right now as we're talking, Saturday night, Sunday morning, start to come off of the list. And when the Sunday games start, all of a sudden it looks a little bit different. Now, Taylor Heineke going on the list today, that's a big problem. I would say more than likely not going to. But the Dolphins skill position players, Duke Johnson, maybe a really good over. Gesicki might be a really good over. And if Miami is struggling to run the ball, believe it or not, you're looking at some Jets players to go over. If Miami is having a lot of 3-and-outs, what they could easily do, even though the Jets defense is bad, you might look at the Jets quarterback and running backs as some good overs. The Giants and the Cowboys, a couple of Giants defenders, Kadarius Toney, but that's a game, nothing that's going to change my mind. There's no issues for COVID that is going to change my mind on the prop market. And we mentioned Washington football team missing a ton of people on defense. Matt, I think your Eagles are set up for a huge rushing game, no matter who's at there. I would hope we would only get one or two Eagles running backs. I think it'd be a much more clear situation. I'd be so disappointed in the lack of bets we'd be able to get down on the game if all four running backs are playing. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't think all four will be active. I think it'll probably be deciding between Boston Scott, who can return kicks and be a special teams guy, or Kenny Gainwell, who could be more of the receiving back of the two of them. So I think one of those two will be down. But that's why I think, as you said, Jordan Howard, I think, presents some good values. And this is why, look, I think that these numbers are going to be hard. And I think it's hard to set the backup guys because you mentioned Duke Johnson. Malcolm Brown could be the guy there in Miami. And don't forget, Miami's one of those teams that I believe they said throws the ball over 60% of the time. So if there was a team that doesn't need running backs, it would be the Miami Dolphins. And on the Jets side, I'll say this. I've loved taking the longest pass under for Zach Wilson. He just doesn't throw the ball deep. And I think last week, look, there was a ton of value on Ty Johnson with regards to receptions. We'll see if Michael Carter comes back. If Michael Carter comes back, I think there could be some value in him, especially on receptions. We know how well he does catching the ball out of the backfield here. But yeah, once again, this is where, and also the other thing to bring up here is like, if we don't know the situation, the books don't know the situation. So I fully expect to get up Sunday morning, be very frustrated by the offerings and be very frustrated by the fact that there's not going to be half the players we hope for available, at least until the inactives come out. So this is where if you can be home at noon on your favorite book, and also make sure to shop around, because I think each of these books are going to have some different numbers. And as we know, every yard matters in something like this.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So I think the biggest takeaway, don't overreact too much. Play it safe, play it cautious, but don't be afraid to pounce if you see the books have a number wrong or if you get a step up on the news. So, all right, Matt, let's get to some best bets. I did not see this one coming for you, but classic Matt Josephs bet. Give it to us. What do you like this morning?
All right, so this is only on DraftKings, and I really like this bet, and it's something I gave out to my clients, and I'll give out to you guys as well. I have over 2.5 wins for the Sun Belt in this bowl season. I love these bets. There were a couple others that I sprinkled on, but this one's my favorite. So basically, look, Sun Belt's in 4 bowls. They've got the bowl later on tonight, Coastal Carolina against Northern Illinois. Coastal Carolina is going to win. That'll give us 1. So we need 2 wins from the next 3, and they're pretty much toss-ups. App State is playing Western Kentucky, and look, I love Western Kentucky. You guys know I love Bailey Zappi. He's a great quarterback, but there could be wind and rain issues that could make things difficult for that team, and if they can't throw the ball, they're not going to be able to win. App State has a good defense. Western Kentucky doesn't. I think App State wins that game. Of course, we'll check the weather of the day of the game, which is tomorrow. The other games that the Sun Belt has is Louisiana is taking on Marshall. Louisiana will essentially be the home team. Now, look, Napier left, their head coach. Several other coaches left. Their starting running back is questionable, but Marshall has been so flaky. I think this is the least likely game to win of the 4 of them, but I do like that Louisiana's home. And then the 4th bowl game is Georgia State and Ball State. Georgia State's one of the hottest teams in the country. They've played really good football down the stretch. They've done it against these other good Sun Belt teams. I'm not as big of a fan of Ball State. I don't know necessarily what their motivation is. Down the stretch with Georgia State playing so well, I think they win that game. So there's 3, and heck, if they win that 4th one, they go 4-0, and we hit the over here. So on DraftKings, I like over 2.5 wins for the Sun Belt this bowl season.
Love bets like that. Absolutely love them. What a great find. That's on DraftKings. We got a player prop in the NFL. I'm going with Najee Harris over 99.5 yards rushing and receiving. I did the segment a few weeks ago about how Najee Harris was being overused. And look what happened. They went 2 games in a row where they didn't use him a whole lot. He had 12 carries against the Chargers and 8 carries against the Bengals. And it looks like it rejuvenated him a little bit because he sailed over this total the last 2 weeks. 21 carries and 5 catches against Baltimore, 20 carries and 3 catches against Minnesota, easily going over the 100-yard mark. This is a big game, huge game for positioning and playoff purposes. And there's no reason to rest not your best offensive player at this point. You could make the case it's Deontay Johnson or Najee Harris. I think it's Najee. But this late in the season, we only got a few games left, and you're desperate to make the playoffs, and what looks like it's going to be Big Ben's last game. He's going to get a ton of touches. I would also look at maybe his rushing attempts. But as far as yards, he's going to be involved in the rushing and the passing. This 99.5 is way too low. I think he easily gets over 100 yards in a game they're going to go all out on. So my best bet is Najee Harris. Quick recap. I'm going with Najee Harris, 99.5 yards rushing and receiving. Matt Josephs going over 2.5 wins for the Sun Belt in the bowl season. That is available on DraftKings. So we certainly have an interesting weekend of sports. We're here at WagerTalk TV to help you through it. Matt Josephs also on sportsmemo.com for all your college NFL needs. So listen, good luck, everyone. Be careful with all of your bets out there. Be safe. And we are going to have shows through the holidays. Next week, we will definitely be here doing some props. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a profitable weekend, and we will see you next week on Prop It Up.
Now you can enjoy the happiness of the holidays for the next 6 months by paying less and making more money by getting 180 days of picks from your favorite handicapper at a huge discount. This limited time Christmas special gives you a 90-day all-access pass with a handicapper of your choice at WagerTalk.com, plus an additional 90 days of all-access passes at no additional cost, an $849 value. This comes out to just under $5 per day, includes all sports released and any 5% best bets, normally priced at $35 each. Your access with your handicapper will cover NFL through the Super Bowl, college football through the national championship, any NBA and NHL action, including playoff games played during access and the start of the MLB season. Plus, if your handicapper does UFC, soccer, tennis, or any sport, yep, it's included. Happy holidays from everyone at WagerTalk.